Hey guys, it's me Leonie, and today I'm gonna do my April wrap-up. So I ended up reading 3 books and I really enjoyed all of them. So it was a pretty fantastic reading month for me, to be honest. Let's just get into it. So the first book that I read this month was Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo. This was a reread for me because Shadow and Bone is the first book in one of my favorite series, the Grisha trilogy, and I just wanted to re-experience the first time that I read this book, which was almost 2 years ago, and I really enjoyed it again this time. This book is about a girl named Alina who finds out that she is the Sun Summoner, which is someone with the ability to summon the light. And the country that she lives in, Ravka, is split up by this giant shadow fold, which is a large field of pure darkness where creepy demons and creatures live, and basically everyone is like, hey, you're the Sun Summoner, so now it's your job to like save us. But Alina has no idea what to do, and it's about her finding out her power and what she has to do with it and what everyone wants to do with her power. I have a full review on it, non-spoiler, plus a spoiler section if you want to know my full thoughts on it. But the bottom line is that I really like this book. I love the world, I love the villain, I love the magic system. The plot could have been a little bit less teenagery for me, but overall I still really liked it. And I gave it 4 stars. And then the next book that I read was Simon versus the Homo sapiens Agenda by Becky Albertalli. Yes, that's her name. I read almost this entire book in... Ow! Ow! I read almost the entire book in one day because I just couldn't stop reading because it was so cute. This is about a boy named Simon who is gay and still in the closet, and the only one who knows is a pen pal, and nobody knows about it but them. But then one day, one of his classmates finds out about the emails and threatens to tell everyone. This is just an incredibly cute story. I would highly recommend this if you just feel like reading a very easy, fun book. Something that I really appreciated about this book, and it might sound a little bit odd, is that Becky Albertalli she didn't shy away from things that usually young adult books shy away from. Like, this book is just full of cursing and innuendos and suggestive jokes, and I just really appreciated that Becky Albertalli just put those things in, because those are things that happen among teenagers, and usually in young adult books those things are not present at all. And because of that, this book just felt very genuine and realistic, and I really appreciated that. So I ended up giving it 4 stars. And then the last book that I read this month was Vicious by V.E. Schwab. Here's an accurate representation of my feelings while reading Vicious. Oh yeah, that book was okay, I guess. I love this book. I give it 5 out of 5 stars. Let's start the ranting, shall we? So Vicious is a standalone science fiction paranormal novel about 2 friends, Victor and Eli, who are 2 students that start doing their thesis on people with superpowers. They become each other's worst enemies and shit goes down. This book hit me in the feels. Seriously, it hit me harder than Miley Cyrus on a wrecking ball. I just... Don't get me wrong, it's not a sad book. I just have a lot of emotions. So let me elaborate. The first thing that I have to say is that this book centers around a theme that for some reason always makes me very emotional, and that is rivalry. I love it when fiction has a rivalry theme. Now please note, I'm not talking about that kind of rivalry in romantic comedies where there's a boy and a girl and they're rivals and they're secretly in love with each other. No. I'm talking about actual painful rivalry that walks the line between caring about each other and hating each other. The kind of rivalry where friendships are corrupted by jealousy and hunger for power. That kind of painful rivalry is something that just really hits me, and I love it. So if you like rivalry relationships, read this book. If you don't like rivalry relationships, still read this book. Everybody needs to read this book. Everything that happens in this book is just completely morally wrong and messed up, and as you know, I just really like that. So if you like moral ambiguity, then read this book, because seriously, everything that happens in this book is just like, whew, that's really messed up. Another thing that I always really like in books is superpowers, and this book also has superpowers made by science, but just like all the characters, even the superpowers are just really messed up. Everything is just super messed up. And I loved it. And also, when I started reading, I immediately felt for these characters for some reason that I can't really explain. I especially really liked Victor Vale. He was my favorite character, and he is one of my new favorite characters of all time. He's one of those anti-heroes that make you go like, oh, you are really, really a messed up person, but I still really love you and I root for you, even though you hurt people. I didn't particularly like Eli, but I did like him as a villain. I've talked about this one time before, but I really like idealistic villains. Eli is the prime example of one of those idealistic villains. He just constantly thinks that he's saving the world, but actually what he needs to be doing is just go to a mental institution, really. After reading this book, I've also realized that I really like V.E. Schwab's writing style. She has a very seamless writing style that flows very well, and it's very fast-paced because she doesn't dwell on those like unnecessary details and descriptions, and I really enjoyed that. Her writing style does involve a lot of telling instead of showing, and that might be annoying to some people, but I actually didn't mind because I felt like it really was a part of her style and it really fitted with the story. So those are just some subjective things that made me really like the book, but I also have a ton of objective reasons why this is such a good book. The first thing that I want to say is that it is just incredibly well plotted. In this book, you are constantly switching back and forth between present time and 10 years ago and other time periods in between. You're also constantly switching between the point of views from the 5 main characters. Even though you're constantly switching around, it never gets confusing because every time you switch to another time period or another point of view, you get a new clue about the story, a new piece in the puzzle, and everything slowly starts making more sense. Everything was weaved together so well that it just really felt like you were reading one storyline, while actually it was just a lot of storylines that woven together very well. The book is also told in 2 parts, and I have to say that I liked the first part a lot better than the second part. When the second part came, the story kind of dipped, but when I say it dipped, I meant it went from an A+++ to like an A-, so it was still really good. But I liked the first part better than the second part. Another thing that was really good about Vicious is that there are no throwaway characters. There's a very small cast of characters. Each character really has their own important part in the story, and it really has their own backstory. They all have their own view on the rivalry between Eli and Victor. I have to admit that the ending did leave me a little bit disappointed. That's also something I noticed about V.E. Schwab's books, is that her endings are good, but looking at the rest of the novel, there were so many opportunities to do so much more in those endings. So with The Darkest Shade of Magic, but also with Vicious, the ending left me a little bit, you know, wanting more, but nevertheless, it still made me very emotional. I still absolutely loved everything else in this book, and I just want everybody to read it because it was so good. If I need to say one thing about this book, there is one quote in the book that basically sums up the entire story, and that is the quote, "There are no good men in this game," and that's exactly what it is. There are no heroes in this story, there's only messed up people. I absolutely loved it. It's one of my new favorite books of all time, and I'm gonna stop ranting. And that was my April wrap-up. I think I've been talking for way too long, so we're just gonna wrap up this wrap-up. And I will see you next month. Goodbye!